Have you ever had anyone ask you what your biggest fear is? And if you have, maybe you answered like snakes or spiders or something silly like that. And, don't get me wrong, I'm not a huge fan of either of those things, but um, I don't think people's biggest fear really is things like that. I know personally, I would say my biggest fear is just uncertainty. The what if something's going to happen? How is this going to play out? Is this going to go my way? Does this person actually care about me? You know, that sort of stuff. And I think looking around at all the people I know, I think uncertainty is almost everyone's biggest fear. I mean, you look at all these old people around, they hate change. Well, why do they hate change? Because when things change, you don't know what's going to happen. People like their routines. Nothing changes. You look at people who work dead end jobs they hate. I see all these things happening. People stay in relationships they shouldn't be in. They do stupid things that they know they shouldn't do because they've gotten accustomed to it. I mean, I look at myself as a person, and there's so many things wrong with me that I've never changed because I'd be uncertain what happens if I change. I get comfortable. And it's not that I'm in a great spot, but I'm just comfortable where I'm at. I know what's going to happen if I continue. And as humans, I think we just have a desire for knowing what's going to happen, at least having a rough idea. If I go work my shitty job every single day and I hate it, but I know I'm going to get a paycheck and I know what that paycheck's roughly going to be and I know the people I'm going to work with and I know what I'm going to be doing, there's comfort in that. Even though it sucks, it can be more appealing to people than going and getting a, in quote, better job somewhere. But you got to meet new people. You don't know if you're going to get along with them. You don't exactly know the stability of the job. You don't know if you're actually going to like the stuff. You might suck at it. You probably will right away. But there's a lot of uncertainty that comes with something like that. Talk about being in a relationship, and even if it's not going that well, there's certainty because you know that person, you know how they're going to act, you know what you're going to do with them. Whereas if you were to exit that relationship, there's so much uncertainty. Am I going to find someone else? Is that person going to be good? Will it ever be as good as it was? You just don't know. And that stuff scares the shit out of me. And I think it scares so many people. And I've done a lot of things in my life to, push the boundaries on that. But I still have a long ways to go. I think that, I took a risk in what I do for work now, and um, there's a lot of people that it would have scared them to death through it, and honestly, it scared me. But I knew, even though there'd be a lot of uncertainty with it, I knew it would be more painful to not do it in the long run. And what I mean by that is, I knew I would rather do this thing, fall flat on my face, rather than never doing it, because then I would never have to wonder what if. Even though the thought of it completely blowing up on me was awfully scaring, and luckily it worked out. But I see a lot of people who don't take that same leap, and there's areas of my life I need to take that leap on. So I'm not coming and talking about this as someone who's figured out life. I wish I had, but my God, I know nothing. Um, but just as someone who's taken a few leaps in their life and realized every time I've not regretted it. I've been happy with my decision. Yet every single time I go and I come up on the same opportunity, I'm scared to do it again. Every single time. And I try to look back and I'm like, well, this is a moment that came up and I decided to, deal with the uncertainty. It's worked out for me. I don't really regret it ever. Yet there's still this huge fear. And I think a lot of people never make that jump. And there's a saying is that most people would rather have a certain nothing than an uncertain something, and I just thought that was so true because I have I have friends around me, and maybe the listeners and know who they are, and I I know I've told this to them, but they like work a job that they shouldn't be working, and they're way overqualified and they could go do something else. And I'm sure just the idea of switching scares them, which is totally valid. But you'd be surprised how malleable you are as a human being. You can get used to a lot of things. You can get used to getting stuck in a shitty situation, and you could also get used to adapting to a new situation. And it could be way better for you. I think about this a lot of times when, there's the opportunity to go do something new with friends or go out to someone's house and maybe hang out with people you don't normally hang out with. And I always get the feeling that it would be easier for me to sit at home and just be a degenerate and kind of be a loser and sit on my phone and stuff because it's extremely comfortable to do that, but it doesn't give you any opportunity for growth. And I've gotten pretty good lately on going out and being in the real world, and I've found that most times I don't regret it. Every once in a while you go to someone's house or some function, you hang out with some people, and it's like those people sucked. But even after I do that, I'm still happy I went because I learned something from it. Whereas if I sit at home and I doom scroll, I just feel like shit and I learn nothing, and I don't even feel rested because I'm just frying my brain horribly. And I think too many people have gotten comfortable with doing that. I mean, there was a period of my life where I was doing that all the time, and I just felt like shit constantly. Like, I probably would have felt better if I went out and met new people that I hated every single day because at least I felt like I was doing something. And I think my initial thought before doing anything is I always think, what if it doesn't work out? Like, that's the absolute worst possibility is it doesn't work out. And then I think about it and it's like, why does that even matter? Like, look at this YouTube channel. It's one of my best decisions I ever made. And if you looked at it from the public's perception, it hasn't worked out. I haven't made money off it, but that's actually not what would define this as working out. To me, it's that I made some memories with my friends and I can always go back on it and view it. And I really enjoy that. So to me, I guess it actually worked out. But when I started it up, there was a lot of fear on the uncertainties. Would people think I'm a bum for making YouTube videos? Or, just things like that that really don't matter and no one really cares about. What I realized is that everyone's so busy in their own lives, no one cared that Gene's making his stupid little YouTube videos, and it made me feel good. So I was able to hurdle the uncertainty of that, and now I have a YouTube channel that I enjoy making videos on, so I'd consider that a win for me. Um, One other area I think of when it comes to uncertainty is when I played sports in high school. I've always been an athletic person, but I always had a lot of anxiety around playing sports. I mean, you talk about like throwing up before games and being extremely scared. And it actually led me to quitting football when I was in 10th grade because I was told by my coach that they might play me on varsity. And I was just this really skinny 10th grader. And I was so scared on what could happen. And I went to the worst case scenario right away. I pictured myself out there just getting picked up and drove into the dirt. And I was scared to death by the uncertainty of playing it. I never let my mind think of all the good things that could have happened by sticking it out. Like, okay, say you're a 10th grader and you get absolutely shit on. Well, it's probably fair because everyone's a couple years older than you. But by the time I would have became a senior, I would have had all this experience and it probably would have put me miles ahead of people. But I was just petrified by what could happen, so it ended up leading to me quitting. And luckily, I had some good friends around me, and they brought me back for my senior season, and I had a blast playing. Sadly, I, I dislocated my elbow, but I had a good time, and I honestly am filled with a lot of regret for quitting because I let my fears control me. And honestly, from that point on, I tried to minimize what my fears could do because I've, I don't know, I think that no one really remembers the big successes or failures you've had as much as you do because everyone else has their own stuff in their head. And the reason that led to me quitting wasn't because I wouldn't be okay with myself failing, it's because I thought, what would other people think of me? Because I honestly take failure pretty well personally because I understand I need to fail in order to be successful on things. But I more so worry about other people's perception of me failing. and the uncertainty on what they would think, but really no one cares about that. So whenever I have a moment come up and I'm filled with fear because I don't know what will happen, that's kind of, I call it, this is going to sound really bad, I call it like my Vietnam, or my 9/11. It makes me remember that I need to push through it, because otherwise I'll regret it later. It's kind of a moment in my life, um, that I can reflect on and make decisions based off of that. But just having that throughout my life has helped me a lot, because I tend to be a person who overthinks a lot of aspects of my life. And it's not that I'm some Einstein, or I'm, cursed with this knowledge. It's just that I think about things often. And I think that's an advantage to me, but it's also something that you need to learn to tell to shut up every once in a while. Because there's some people that don't think enough, and then you just hear them say stuff, and you're like, this person's an idiot. You wish they'd think a little more. But there's people like me out there that are overthinking things. And, you know, it's best to be in the middle on this one. Not everything's black and white. I think there's certain advantages with both of them, but I think you can learn to control it. And I'm starting to realize this now, like I'm in the present, and I'm realizing probably overthinking this one. Let's just go do it. Like, I'm talking about just like the silliest things that I would overthink. Like, I would be scared sometimes to like thank people for like making me a meal, because I thought, well, is everyone gonna think weird if I just blurt this out? But in reality, people like compliments. You probably can't compliment people too much. But I was just constantly overthinking, running all these scenarios in my head of what would happen, you know, if I said X, Y, or Z, just filled with uncertainty. And really, that's what life is. I think that's the funnest part of life, is is the uncertainty. Because, man, I don't, when I think about what I want, it's not a routine life where I know exactly what's going to happen. Even though I would be much less anxious and I'd have much less fear if that happened, I think those moments where you don't know which way it's going to go, and I know everyone has these moments, and like you could think of some right now. I think about my friend who jumped off a balcony. It's like, man, like that's a moment where, like, is this guy gonna freaking die? Is he gonna break his legs? Is he gonna be just fine? Which he was, God bless. But it's like those are the fun moments of life where you don't know what's going to happen. And so I think I just need to constantly challenge myself to get in more of them moments. And I've gotten in the routine of, like, I work and then I go home and I sit on my phone, and then you do the whole thing again, and it's just so boring. It's so safe. I think that's why it's appealing, is there's just no challenge to it, and it's so easy, and you don't feel alone when you're on social media and that sort of stuff. But it's just not fun. The other week, one of my buddies asked if we wanted to go get a TV, and I just said yes. It made no sense for me. I was already working late that night, and then I was gonna get home super late, and then I had to get up early. But I was just like, fuck it, let's go get this TV, and I had a blast doing it. And the people we got the TV from, they couldn't even like speak English, man, and it was in a sketchy place, and we didn't even know how to secure that thing. But it was just fun. Like, I enjoyed it, and now I have the memory of that. And I also had a really good conversation with my friend. I learned more about my friend on that ride than I probably learned from him my whole life. Like, we had a real conversation, and it just reminds me, like, just go out there and put yourself in situations where you don't know what the hell is going to happen, and sometimes they're going to blow up in your face. I mean, I've been there where I put myself in a weird situation, and it's not fun. It's actually just weird. But I don't know. I tend to forget them pretty easy, or I remember them, and then it's like you think about it, and you're like, yeah, well, you got to take the good with the bad. The problem I always had when I got in these scenarios, when you have the decision to make, is, am I making the right decision? And, at first, I was going to say that can be tough. But honestly, I don't agree with that. I don't agree with that at all, because I've been in them spots and I've been like, man, this is a tough decision. I don't know what's the right move. And then I'm like asking people for advice, which is like a normal thing you do when you need help from people, which I think is fair. But the more I think about it, the stupider it sounds. Because think about the person who knows you best in your life right now. Think about it for a second. You might think maybe you're one of your parents, a sibling of yours, your best friend, and all of those would just be wrong. There is nobody on this planet that knows you as well as you. You know every single detail about yourself. At least you should. So if you're making a decision, that alters your life, why would you ask someone else for their opinion when you have all of the facts on it? I mean, you could spend, a few days with one of your friends filling in them on every single thing in your life, but I mean, man, maybe my friends just aren't good enough to do that, but I also wouldn't want to put them through that because that'd be horrible. I'm not that interesting to where anyone could enjoy that. But it's like if you had a biography made on you, they wouldn't go to your mom for it if you were alive. Maybe if you're dead, they'd like find family members. But if you were alive and they wanted to make a biography, maybe it's autobiography, I don't really care. They would talk to you because you're the one that knows. So when you're making a decision that alters your life, I don't think it's a terrible idea to consult with people, but don't look for the answer from them because you have it. And I think of all these decisions, and every single one of them, I knew what I had to do. And maybe I was just looking for someone to give me the other answer because I knew what I had to do, but I didn't want to. And I recently had someone ask me for advice on this. And I wanted to like give them this great advice, but I just couldn't because I couldn't understand the depths of them as well as they could. And I think the best advice on that is just go with your gut. I think you'll have a gut feeling on what you need to do. All of these moments that I've talked about, I knew in my gut what I had to do. But my advice would just be, go with your gut. Maybe check it with your heart on the way down. Wise man once said that. I think that's a great saying. Like I don't remember a time where I went with my gut and I was like, that was a terrible decision. Like when I was playing football, I knew I should stay in. I should ride it out, but I didn't. Talk about being in a relationship that I knew was failing, and I was scared to go be on my own, and I knew I should get out. I just knew it. It was in my gut. I felt it every single day, and I just failed to do it. So I think we actually know we have the answers to our problems. They're right there. You can feel it. I can't feel it for you. Your friend can't do it. Your mom can't. No one can know what to do besides you. And I think you just got to follow that. And I think it'll take you great places. And every single day I try to listen to my more, and I try to overcome the fear. And some days I fail, and some days I do really well. But I think you just have to do that, and I think that'll lead to a life you can enjoy. Because I see a lot of people around me, they didn't do that, and I see some people around me who have done that, and they're extremely happy. I don't have all the answers, but that's just my thoughts on it. Talk to you guys next time.